Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Yeah. Everyone all set? Cocked and locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Jason, thank you for engineering. And Guineith, thank you for teaching class today. Welcome.
That's all right. How are you?
Doing just great. Guineith, I'm really excited. I just got off the phone this morning. We're working on a project here at the farm that involves gravel and concrete and rebar and we're working against time because there's a price increase starting the 1st of next month, which is just a few days away. And the rain has put us back. The rain has put everybody back. All the things that we need to do in preparation, and we can't do because of the mud. And so I called the quarry this morning before the broadcast, and I asked them if they wouldn't mind locking us in. That's, something they typically don't do. And I talked to one of the owners, and so they have a concrete company and they have a quarry. And he said, no problem. I'll be glad to hold the price, no price increase. And I thought that was really neat. And so we started talking about concrete, etc. And I thought, gosh, he is the guy to have join the faculty to teach us about concrete. How it works, the different strength mixes, the different types of aggregate, how to cure it so it is stronger, how to specify it when you buy it so that you get the correct mix for your job, because you can mix it lots of different ways, and you can put in more cement or less cement, depending on, the kind of work in your budget, and what the difference is, and whether you should add, fiber to it, whether you should add, calcium in the winter so that it doesn't, freeze, all kinds of things. And he's really seriously considering coming on the air with us. So I'm all excited about that. And we'll be the first broadcast class, I think, in the world to have a concrete guy. Doesn't that sound great?
That sounds really good, because that's such an important topic. And concrete's something that if it's done right, it'll last for over 100 years. But if it's done wrong, it'll crumble in less than 10 years. You've got in China they call them tofu buildings because they put so little cement in the concrete that the buildings just fall apart. And that's apparently coming to the surface now, and it's a really big problem because people are able to crumble the building with just their hands in China. Mm-hmm. And this is like everything that's made in China, it just doesn't seem to last. Right. And, the Chinese people, that apparently goes for their own buildings as well, Mm-hmm. Didn't used to be like that in China, because they used to have buildings. I mean, there are some buildings in China that are many thousands of years old, but, ones that have been built since, the communists took control, they just don't seem to be lasting the distance. And it's because that they have been using inferior concrete. Just like they have inferior everything else, they have inferior concrete as well.
Yeah, and there's also an art and a science to curing concrete. So, for example, if you let the concrete dry quickly, I mean, everybody wants to pour the concrete and then start using it tomorrow. Well, if you pour concrete and you let it dry too quickly, it will become weaker. The idea is to let it take longer for the concrete to crystallize and gain strength. So what I do is I wet the surface that I'm going to put the concrete on and make sure it settles, number one. So the surface is damp underneath. Not muddy, just damp. And then we pour the concrete, and then as soon as the concrete starts to just, hours later, I mist it down with a hose, a garden hose and a mist to keep it from drying out. Especially in the sun, I keep it misted for weeks, literally weeks. And ultimately when it gets real, let's say several days in, you can get water on it and let the water sit on it, and that will keep it from drying out too quickly, and it'll make a much, much stronger concrete. So we'll have an expert, hopefully, teach us about how to do this, and also how to use rebar. And rebar is that concrete reinforcing bar. It's like a steel rod, comes to typically 20 feet long or less, and it has nubs on it that grip the concrete. And the thing about rebar, the iron that they use in rebar has exactly the same expansion and contraction ratio as concrete. So it expands and contracts as the concrete does, and it doesn't break the concrete. It actually holds it together. So that's why you use that. So anyway, those are some of the things that I'd really like to teach in this class. And how thick do you need to make the concrete? And around here they call it a specific SACK, S-A-C-K mix. Like how many sacks of concrete do you add to a cubic yard? Do you add 5, 5.5, 6? So they call it 5 sack, 5.5 sack, 6 sack. I refer to it a different way. I refer to it in the pressure, like I would call it 3,500 pound concrete or 4,000 pound concrete mix, etc., or 4,500 pound. But so we should talk about that, and I think it'd be a great class. And also about stone. What kind of stone do you put down for your driveway? They take the big rocks and they crush them and they make little rocks out of it. Now, little rocks might be 3 or 4 or 5 inches in diameter, or they might be 1 inch or 1.5 inch, or they might be half inch, or it might be just dust. So what do you put where? And we'll be talking about that. I'm really looking forward to that. I wanted to share with you, Guineith, that I mentioned that we received our electric bill last Thursday. Got it out of the post office box, and we go to the post office typically every day. And we got our mail, and the electric bill was due on the day it arrived in the post office. So we were late. There's no way we can pay it and have it back at the electric company the day we receive it. We can't mail a check and have it arrive, at the electric company the same day we receive it. So Mrs. Finelli talked to the gal at Laclede Electric, and of course they're familiar with me and my name, and that I ran for the board of directors. And not everybody's happy with that, because they thought I would reduce all their salaries, I think. And so anyway, they told us that there was going to be a late fee, and that's all there was to it. And that really drove me crazy. So I decided to call the CEO, and I actually asked Mrs. Finelli to call and leave a message for him to call me back after the broadcast was over yesterday, and he did. And I explained to him that there's a problem with the Postal Service, because we verified with our post office that there are irregularities, and the mail is delayed. And so I said to him, so this is, and the guy's name is Mark Rocker, he's the CEO. And I said to him that the problem seems to be something that the board of directors should address. And that is that if people haven't received their electric bill in time for them to send in a payment, you need to waive the late fee and give them a break and not beat them up. And I said, I think this is something the board should be involved in. Would you mind discussing that with the board? And I think he thought maybe what I meant was, if I need to get involved and run for the board and make this happen, I'll probably do it. And so he told me that they were going to waive the fee. They're going to waive our fee, and he's going to address it, because he thinks that because I mentioned it, it probably is a real problem, and they're going to address the problem of the delayed mail. And I explained to him that we have a credit card with Menards, and Menards pays us 2% back on all our purchases with them. And we buy a lot of stuff from the farm, from Menards, and it's only because they have the best price. And so anyway, we we got, on the same day we got the electric bill last Thursday, we got the Menards credit card bill, and it was due tomorrow, meaning 1 week later. There's no way that we can get the statement, put it in the sun for a day, open it the next day, write the check, and have it arrive 10 days early for processing at the credit card company, which happens to be Capital One, which is a credit card issuer for Menards. So it's going to be late. So we call them, and this is the second time we've called them to say, hey, we got the bill, and we're going to pay you today, but you're going to get it late. And they always waive the late fee. So now it's two companies that we are seeing sending us bills that there's no way we can pay on time, and there would be a late fee unless we acted upon it. So bottom line is, class, if you have this problem and you get a bill that you can't pay on time because it arrived late, a bona fide reason why, postal service reason why, for example, call the company up and tell them before it's due. And they will probably waive that fee because you're not the only guy calling them or the only gal calling. Guineith, your comments?
Yeah, I don't really have too many bills. I just have the internet, and that's really my only bill that I pay for a service ahead of time. So I buy prepaid phone credits. So yeah, but or behind time. Sorry, it's
Wait, you prepay for your
should do that though.
You prepay for your phone?
I pay for my mobile phone. I might pay for my mobile phone credits before I use them. So,
okay, I have a comment. I have a comment about that.
Prepaid cell phone. Yeah.
I have a comment about that. So I did a little investigation about what is less expensive, prepaid or postpaid. So prepaid is you buy one of those cards at a store, and you pay for it, and you get X number of minutes for a period of 30 days. The alternative is you have a plan with a cellular service provider like Verizon or T-Mobile or whatever the one in your country happens to be, and you pay, you use it, and then they send you a bill and you pay it. Now the difference is huge in terms of taxes. And there are as many as 21 different taxes on a cellular telephone bill that is, a contract where you pay them every month and they send you a bill compared to a prepaid phone card that you're using. So you probably only have, if you have a sales tax, you might have to pay that. And that's it, period. But if you have, like a Verizon plan, you might have 21 or 12 or 9 different taxes that are added on to your cell phone bill. So the least expensive way that I found is a prepaid plan, which is what you're doing. And I don't know if that's true in Australia, but it certainly is true in the corrupt corporation called the United States.
Well, in Australia, what I know, because I've had phones on phones before, and it just ends up being really hideously expensive because you end up paying the telephone company twice what your cell phone is worth over a period of 2 years. And, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And whereas you can buy off the shelf a $100 or $150 cell phone.
Hold that thought. Guineith, you were talking about the prepaid cell phone card. Please continue.
Yeah, you can get a cell phone off the shelf for maybe $150, and it's not the flashiest cell phone, but it does the job. And then you put the prepaid SIM in it, and you call up the cell phone company and you activate the SIM, and then you pay, you buy a certain number of prepaid credits each month. And if you've got a bit more money and you think that you're going to need the data, then you buy more credits. But if you think, well, I better just buy $30 worth of credits this month, and I'm going to be okay for the data, then you just buy the $30 credit. And then you're not locked into paying the cell phone company a huge amount of money, every single month. And if you don't, then you're in trouble. And if it's a really, really lean month, then I just don't buy data. Or I buy it the following fortnight. And this is it. So for me, it's a much better way to manage my cell phone. And I pay most of my bills because I live quite a long way from town, and I can only get into town at the most once a fortnight. I usually pay most of my bills with my MasterCard, that is a debit card. And so I don't have so much the problem of the check, having to get the check off in time. So if I'm in town and I'm thinking, I better get some cell phone credits, well, I can buy them at the supermarket. But if not, then I can use my MasterCard through my telephone and buy the credits that way through my cell phone itself. And so that's how I organise it. But the only other real bill I have coming in is for my satellite internet service, and that's not prepaid. That's, you pay for the service the month after you've used the service, if that makes sense. But that's paid for as an automatic payment. That I can call up the company and I can say, listen, would you be able to put my payment through now? And they will do so. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah. And when we're talking about cell phone taxes, I tried to find a list of taxes on the internet. I wasn't able to do it during the commercial break. It used to be available and you could see it. All of these taxes, like the 20 different taxes that you could pay, depending on where you live. Because all these municipalities, the cities, the counties, they all want their little piece. And by the time they add them all up, like the fire department piece and the police department piece and the 911 piece and then the county piece and then the town piece and the city piece and then the federal piece and the state piece. And you put it all together, you could have 20 of these different taxes itemized on your cell phone plan. I'm not kidding. So, but I couldn't find the list of all of these. And I think New York is the highest in terms of the number of different taxes. But in terms of the highest tax rate, it is Washington State. Now, just sharing the border with Washington State in the United States, not D.C., I'm just talking about the state on the left coast, 18.6% is the average state and local tax rate for cell phone taxes in Washington State. Now, one state below that is Oregon, and theirs is 1.8%. So Oregon pays 1.8%, and the next state going north is Washington State, and their tax rate is 10 times what their neighbor is, Oregon. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
So it varies by,
amazing.
Level of alleged representation by the local governments and the state government, et cetera, as to what you're going to pay. Now, New York State is pretty high. It's 17.7%. Illinois is 15.8%. Nebraska is 18.5%. Florida is 16.6%. And the corrupt state of Missouri is 14.6%. So it depends on where you live or where your cell phone plan is based out of as to what tax you pay. So Guineith and I will be right back. We had not planned on talking about this at all, but that's the truth. Here it is. So I found a small partial list of some of the taxes and fees on cell phone plans. Here are just a few of them. 911. So they charge you for a 911 possible use. In case you call 911, they charge you for it, okay? So there's that fee for that. Then there's something called the Universal Service Fund. And that's something that you pay into, which provides rural and low-income communication services, whatever that is. Then there's the state telecommunications excise surcharge. Then there's the regulatory charge. Then there's the administrative charge. Then there's the state and local taxes. So each state, county, and city imposes its own tax. So that's 3 more. Just the state, the county, and the local. And then there are, in California, there's a utility user tax. There's a telco, meaning telephone company recovery fee. There's a regulatory programs fee. There is an e-waste recycling fee in California. And that's just to name a few of them. So I've seen as many as, I think 20 to 21 different taxes and fees on a telephone cell plan bill that I looked at. So depending on where you live, there are a lot of fees. Take a look at your bill and, determine for yourself how outrageous it is. And you may want to do what Guineith has done and go to a prepaid, cell, phone card and just get that refilled, once a month as needed if you decide to have a cell phone. Because then you only pay one tax, I believe, and that would be the sales tax. Okay? So,
yeah.
Guineith, back to you. What will you be teaching today?
Okay, I would like to talk about cryptocurrencies today because that's a topic of quite some considerable discussion in the media from what I'm hearing, and there seems to be a lot of confusion and a lot of uncertainty about this topic. And so I would like to maybe try and fill in some gaps that might be out there. Does that make sense, Vincent? Yeah.
Guineith, okay. you dropped out. I had no idea what you said for about 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. I said,
but maybe that was just me. Sense? That might have been just me.
There's a lot of uncertainty about cryptocurrencies, and I would like to, inform the class from what I can see of where this whole thing is going. And from what I can see, the central banks know that their fiat currencies are in deep trouble and are in the process of collapsing. And so they are in the process of helping to establish certain cryptocurrencies to replace the fiat currencies in a few years' time. And that includes some that are being set up especially by them. I've heard that the Chinese government is setting up their a fiat, a central bank cryptocurrency, so they call it. And I think that the U.S. Federal Reserve is also setting up its own official cryptocurrency, but as well as that, Bitcoin has been more or less, given the tick by the central bankers as being, well, this is what we are going to support going into the future. And for that reason, I believe that all cryptocurrencies, that this is a system that is being established and it's not going anywhere. And that it's actually being set up in the long run to replace fiat currency. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah. I was talking to Bert Bertonis yesterday, and he said, it's kind of easy to set up one of these cryptos. And he said, but why is it that none of them is backed by gold? Why? Do you have an answer for that?
I think that there might be one or two of them out there that is gold-backed, but then you get into a difficult problem because how are you going to align which crypto coin aligns with which piece of gold, if that makes sense? There have been people who have tried to work out that problem, because you can melt down a gold coin and you can remint it. Or if you live in an area like I do, which is actually a gold field, I live in the middle of the Victorian gold field, and most of the towns around here that were established back in the early foundation days were established as gold camps. So a gold camp got set up, and then, a hotel got put in, and, a livery stables, and then, some blacksmiths and engineers and all the rest of it. And before you know it, you've got a town. How are you going to say which piece of gold goes with which piece of cryptocurrency? And if you get a new piece of gold, how are you going to line that up with your cryptocurrency? And I think that is the problem. And I think that gold is going to continue to have a role of being currency. It's been currency since the dawn of time. And I have a gold detector, and I intend to go out doing some gold detecting in some of the riverbeds that are around here, because some of the largest gold nuggets that have ever been found in the history of the world have been found just a few miles from my house. So, for instance, there's a nugget called the Hand of Faith, which I believe now resides in an American casino. And the Hand of Faith nugget was found around about 10 miles from here. So not very far away at all. At a stretch, for me, when I'm feeling healthy, would be a good day's walk. And you also have the Blanche Barkley nugget, was also found around here. And there was another nugget called, what was it called? The Kangaroo nugget was another nugget that was found more or less within 10 miles of my house. So there have been, but as well as that, you have got people come and they do gold detecting every week, and they come all the way from Melbourne, which is about 200 miles away. And according to what they say, they usually at least make their petrol money back. They usually at least pay their gasoline bill to come out here, and they have a nice weekend camping, and they have a metal detector with them, and they go detecting, and they find enough gold to pay for their holiday and make a bit of a profit. So if they're coming all the way from Melbourne and doing that, I guess I could probably take my metal detector in a backpack and go for a walk one day and do the same thing, and then walk home in the evening. But this is it. I think that is getting back to it. I think that's the problem with gold and cryptocurrencies, and why they can't just line the two up. Now, the thing of, anyone can just invent their own cryptocurrency. Yes and no, okay? The technology is now well developed, okay? And if you know what to do, you can set up your own blockchain. But the thing is that you're going to have to get other people to also mine the coins, and you're going to have to get those coins accepted by the crypto community as a foundationally solid coin. And you have to get the things like cryptography and privacy correct, or it's not going to be any good at all. And I mean, you get some coins that don't have very good cryptography, that don't have very good privacy, and that are more or less joke coins. And they still trade, people still buy them, and people still sell them, and people still use them. But everybody knows that they're really not worth, and will never be worth, as much as a coin with good cryptography and good privacy settings. Now, an example of a coin that doesn't have very good privacy, doesn't have very good cryptography, but that just about everybody can mine, is Dogecoin. Its ticker is DOGE, and it's spelled DOGECOIN, or Dogecoin, some people call it. And it's got the little, for its logo, it's got a little picture of a Shiba Inu dog sort of looking up and to one side, the meme of the Shiba Inu. I think everybody knows what I'm sort of talking about it. But it hasn't, it's a joke. It's always been a joke. It was set up as a joke. But it's never going to be worth very much because, everybody knows that it's got no mining cap. That means it can be mined endlessly. And at some stage, the world's just going to end up getting flooded with Dogecoin, and it's just going to, lose its value completely. So why would you have it? But in the meantime, you can go on the internet, and if you've got a reasonable internet speed, you can just tap on your keypad or your mouse or whatever and just mine Dogecoin just by tapping on the button, and every certain number of taps of your key. Then you get a coin. What we do? Wow, that's amazing. You've just got 60 cents for doing, 50 key taps of your mouse or whatever. Or however many it is. But this is it. The cryptos are not just cryptos. And even Bitcoin's sort of the big daddy, mostly because it was the first one, and it has reasonable cryptography, but because the banksters have gotten a hold of it in the last few years, its privacy has really suffered. I'd like to continue talking about this after the break, Vincent.
Yeah, and the IRS wants they want in, and they want to be able to crack the wallets.
Too.
Yeah, we'll be right back. So, Guineith, there's a report by Crypto News, and they say that the IRS is hiring hackers who can crack Bitcoin wallets. What an outrage. What an outrage. The whole purpose of Bitcoin was supposed to be privacy, but obviously that's gone by the wayside. So now there's we all know that there is a transactional list maintained with Bitcoin. So isn't there a story about someone who bought something maybe questionable with Bitcoin? You want to tell that story?
Yeah. I listened to a couple of people who have to do with Bitcoin, and some of these people might live in countries around the United States. And one of them might have had a friend that lived in the United States that wanted to buy something that maybe they shouldn't have been buying. And I'm not sure if this person lived in the United States or in a country near the United States. Okay? So I'm deliberately trying to keep the details of this obscure. But they tried to buy something from the United States that might have been legal in the United States, but maybe wasn't in the country that they were from. And they were traced back to, pretty well right away. And it was found out about pretty well right away. And, within minutes, their bank account was frozen. And they were getting all sorts of interesting phone calls from people wanting to know what they were doing. And I don't know if this person managed to talk their way out of prison or whatever, but, it just goes to show that it's not really that private, and that they are watching you when you spend your Bitcoin. They are watching you, and there are ways to anonymize Bitcoin on the dark web, and they work, but you can also get ripped off that way, and you can very easily end up losing your Bitcoin. So you have to really do your research and make sure that you know which one of these Bitcoin anonymization services is genuine and is not just going to take your Bitcoin. This is it. So there are ways around it, but the easier way, if you want to maintain your privacy, is to go with what's called a privacy coin. And there's a number of privacy coins out there on the, in the world of blockchain, but the three that seem to have risen to the surface are Monero. Its ticker is XMR. You spell Monero Monero. And there's another one called WowNero, that's WOWNERO, and its ticker is WOW. And one that is my personal favorite, which probably won't surprise anybody out there in the class, is a coin that is called Pirate Coin, and its ticker is ARRR. So that's Pirate Coin in particular is a coin that is, let's just say that it's specifically designed for all of the people out there in the world of blockchain and internet who really, really like pirates. And that can be taken a number of ways. And, of course, I like pirates. For anybody who's new in the class, in my past life, I was a pirate. I was the matelot of Bartholomew Roberts, who was called the teetotaling Pirate King. So I was George Wilson, and I've known that I was George Wilson, ever since my husband Archie was alive. And when he was, he was the teetotaling Pirate King. He had past life memories of that. But I've done whole broadcasts on that topic in the past, so I won't go into it much here now. But I like pirates. And so the pirate coin is a favorite of mine. And I think that it has probably the greatest potential, or they all have good potential for people who want to keep their affairs private. But I'd like to, I think I can hear music again, Vincent.
Yeah. I have a comment about freezing bank accounts when we come back, and then please continue. That really bothers me, the potential for having a frozen bank account and what that can mean to a family. And I'm talking about someone who is absolutely towing the line, doing the right thing, and having their bank account shut down without access. We'll be right back after these top of the hour announcements. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Class, I mentioned on the air that if you'd like me to talk about the tractor hydraulic fluid scandal and fraud that was perpetrated by 2 corporations on the United States farmers, please send me an email. And if I receive enough emails, I will talk about it tomorrow. That email address is Instructor, INSTRUCTOR, at USAPrepares.com. USAPREPARES.com. Instructor at USAPrepares.com. And just put in the subject, I'd like to hear about the tractor hydraulic fluid, or 303 fraud or something like that. And that's 303 tractor hydraulic fluid fraud. And I'll be glad to talk about it tomorrow with the class. And tomorrow, hour number 1, Kyle's going to be with me. Hour number 2, Stuart is going to be with me. And Stuart is the gentleman, my dear friend, who his mother left it when he was age 8. His father died at 15. He was on the family farm, and he was responsible for taking care of the farm, and the bank foreclosed on him, sold everything, including his bicycle, and he was left net 37 cents and started life over with 37 cents all by himself. And he is a tremendous success. And he's going to be on the air with me tomorrow, and he's going to tell the story. And that's a great story. Then Friday, Amber is going to be back with us, Dr. Amber Abernathy, and we're going to talk about me-ism. You know, me first. That's something that drives me crazy. People who are egocentric, me first. And then hour number 2, Bert. And so that's the lineup. And Guineith mentioned a bank account being frozen because this guy used crypto. Now think about this. So you use crypto and the bank shuts down your account. I want to tell you a quick story about something that kind of related to that happened to me. So for Expo number 1, about 10 years ago, I was contacted. Well, first I had to apply for a license to do business in the city of Springfield. And I had to post a bond. And then for one of the expos, and they knew who I was. The city of Springfield knew who I was before I even got there. Why? Because the convention halls contact the city government and say, hey, y'all, we got a new fish, and you can jump on them and extract as much as you can out of them. That's how it works. So the convention halls, the convention venues, in most locations are city or city/county government operations. And they are in the business of extracting as much as they can from you. So here's what happened. The Department of Revenue for the county and city, where Springfield, Missouri is, told me that I will give these documents to each one of our exhibitors. And the documents were for them to apply for and pay for a business license in order to sell anything to any of our expo guests. So we had lots and lots of exhibitors, and the city told me that it was my job to make sure that they all filled out this form and either paid for an annual license to transact business or a temporary license for a couple days, like a weekend. And they had to fill out the form, they had to pay their fee, and I had to make them do it. And they handed me these forms, and I said, no. You want them to pay tax? And the obvious thing was, once they filled out this business license, they would have to report and pay tax, sales tax, on whatever they sold at the expo. So not only did they have to pay for a business license, they had to pay revenue to the city county government based on the amount that they sold. And they told me I was responsible for that. And I told them I wasn't going to do it. I said, I am not your agent, and I am not your tax collector, and I'm not your employee, and I'm not going to do it. Now, what does that relate to what you said about the bank freezing the assets? Why? Because the bank said to the government, okay, I'll do it. Isn't that what happened? That's what happened. The bank agreed to succumb to government pressure, and they seized a private account of an individual because the government said you're going to do it. Which means that if at any point in time somebody from the government can say to somebody at a bank, that account, freeze it. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you have a mortgage payment that's due like, this month and next month and the month after and the month after, and you have car payments that are due just the same every month, and you have other installment payments that are due every month, and credit card payments that are due every month, and an electric bill and a water bill and a sewer bill, etc., and they freeze your account, are you still going to be able to pay your bills and not lose your farm or your house or your business or your car or whatever it is? The answer is it's unlikely, right, that you're going to be able to keep those possessions if your bank account is frozen. It can be frozen by a clerical mistake. It can be frozen by an act of aggression by a government employee. It can be an act of retribution by a government employee not liking you. Guineith, any comments?
Yeah, I've actually personally. By the way, the story in the previous section was not me. Okay, I don't live anywhere near the United States, but I have had my bank account frozen by my bank in the past because I bought cryptos using my bank account. And that was not fun. And I basically was able to call up the bank and say, listen, this really is me. I haven't broken any rules. I haven't broken any laws. And I'm just doing some investment activity on a really small scale. I'm talking about low three-figure scale of purchases. So this is not on a huge scale whatsoever. But the bank, froze my account, and what they said was, we do this to prevent fraud. And I said, well, this is not fraud. This is actually me, and this is what I'm doing. So when they realized that it really was me, that I wasn't doing anything unlawful, that I was just buying some cryptocurrencies with my bank account, which you're allowed to do in Australia using your MasterCard, they said, yeah, okay, fine. But it took 24 hours to unfreeze my bank account. And fortunately, I didn't have any payments that were imminently due to go out. And fortunately, the person that I was dealing with in the fraud department at my bank was understanding. And I would say even, he said that he was investing in cryptos himself. So he said, no, I understand, I'm sympathetic, and yes, you can have your bank account back. But that's not necessarily going to be so if the banks decide that they're going to play hardball. And that's why you need to get into privacy coins, and you need to have an offline wallet. Now, the wallet is a software that is used to contain your cryptocurrency. And what you can do is you can download a cryptocurrency wallet for the crypto that you are interested in, and you can download it onto a USB thumb drive, and you can plug it into the computer, download the software onto the thumb drive, and when it's on the thumb drive, you take the thumb drive out of the computer, and there is no way that anybody can hack into your thumb drive and get your cryptocurrency off it. Does that make sense, Vincent? That is the most secure way of keeping cryptocurrencies. It's called cold storage.
Absolutely.
And it's
absolutely.
If you combine one of those cold storage wallets with a privacy coin such as Monero, WowNero, or Pirate, then you've got something that's a lot more secure, a place to put funds that is actually much more secure than a bank account. Because when you're using one of these privacy coins, the blockchains are not public. They are basically, they're not available to view anywhere on the internet. and the only people who know the details of your transaction are you and the person that you are transacting with. And they have a high level of cryptography, and, you know, basically they're much less hackable than Bitcoin will ever be. And, you know, unless you go telling people that you have one of these wallets, then they're never going to know. And even if you do tell people, there's no way of anyone knowing the details of your wallet. And most of them have a system where the wallet address can be constantly changed, and they recommend that you constantly change the address of your wallet so that you can generate a new address. The address is like the bank account number, okay? If you're thinking of cryptocurrencies in terms of bank accounts, there is a capacity to generate a brand new account number for each transaction that you do. And that's, well, it's something that you can do with Bitcoin, but it's not baked into the cake like it is with a lot of the privacy coins and privacy wallets. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah, and I have a comment about that, privacy. Years ago, probably maybe 11 years ago, I built the first expo, and I built it with two other guys. And one of the guys was a former cop. And the reason we built an expo was because at that time, I was furious with the price of gun shows. You know, they were $3 and $4 and $5 and $6 and $7. They kept climbing higher and higher. And I thought, I can do a gun show, and we can charge, you know, $3 and cover our costs. And, you know, why should we charge $10 a head for people to come to a gun show? But I decided to make it a gun show / preparedness expo. And I'll tell you the rest of the story when we come back, but it ties into what you're saying. We'll be right back. So I designed this expo, and I had two business partners. One of them happened to be a former cop. And the three of us were sitting around in the office of the venue, and the guy representing the venue said, okay, I'm going to need to take a deposit to hold the venue for, you know, for a month, for the expo to, you know, for you to secure the expo hall. And so the cop pulled out his credit card and put $1,000 down on the as a binder. And so we all went home, and then we had all the exhibitors lined up. We had the flyers posted all over. We had the advertisements. Everything was done. And one of the seminars, I was going to speak at one of the seminars about gold and silver and financial investments, you know, protecting your little nest egg. And so 2 weeks before the expo was to begin, I got a call from the cop, and he said, you're out. You're no longer involved. And the other partner involved in it got the same call, and he was out. So what happened was this cop stole our expo. And my seminar, and I showed up to do my seminar, and the police were waiting for me. And I walked in the door, and a guy was on the phone and said, your problem is here. And they grabbed me, and the police were waiting for me outside.
Wow.
And the cop said, if you don't leave, you're going to be arrested for criminal trespass. And I pulled out this flyer, and it said, look, at 10 o'clock, I'm on stage. I'm speaking at this thing. This is my expo. And the cop said, if you don't want to go to jail, leave. So I left. Now, here's the reason why I'm telling you this story. The guy that they had replace me was a guy who taught us a seminar about precious metals, specifically silver. And this is an organization called Silver Savers. And the idea was, well, you can't figure out how to buy silver on your own. So what you do is you have a payroll deduction, and they deduct $25 from each paycheck, and that paycheck deduction goes to Silver Savers, and that company will buy silver for you when you have enough money to buy silver. So, you have to accumulate enough, and I don't know how much enough is. Maybe it's $100, maybe it's $500, maybe it's $1,000. And then they'll buy it for you at whatever the market price is at that time when they decide to buy it. Not at the lowest price, but whenever they decide that you have enough to buy silver. And then they buy the silver and ship it to Wilmington Trust in Wilmington, Delaware, where the silver is actually held safely for you. And you pay a storage fee, you pay a transaction fee, you have no idea what price you're buying the silver at, and if you decide you ever want to take physical possession of it, you contact Silver Savers, and they will arrange for it to be shipped to you, and you'll pay a processing fee, a transaction fee, and a shipping fee. Now, the whole point of that is,
wow.
My seminar was Max's Law. Buy the best, pay cash, and take delivery. So you figure out what you want to buy when you want to buy it. You study the market, you look at historical data, and you decide when you want to buy silver or gold. And you buy it, and then when you buy it, you pay cash for it, and then you take possession of it right then and there. Now, you take it home or you take it to wherever you're going to store it, and it's under your control. It's not in a safety deposit box. It's not being held by somebody you hardly know. Don't know where they live for sure. And they have the keys for you to get your gold or silver, which is crazy. So that's what Silver Savers, is doing, except way worse than that. And they think everybody's an idiot and can't handle their own purchasing of gold and silver. And they say, well, yeah, but we secure it for you, and it's in Wilmington Trust, and it's really safe over there. Now, I've been to Wilmington Trust. I've stood on the sidewalk and I've looked up at the building. It's really there. That's the kind of stuff they do. But you are not in control of your silver if they are housing it for you. And if it's 5:01 and if they close at 5 o'clock, you're not getting it. So why is it that people can't figure out that maybe they can store their own silver? Why? They have a diamond ring, right? They have a wedding ring, right? They have gold earrings, right? They have a necklace, right? But they can't figure out how to store their own silver? It's beyond stupid to me. But anyway, that's what some people do. So the whole point of that story is Guineith is absolutely right. Do not put your wallet outside of your possession. You need to have it in your control. And don't lose it. We'll be right back. So, class, the exclamation point I was trying to make is that if you have valuables such as crypto, don't store it on the internet because it can be stolen. Your identity can be stolen, the funds can be withdrawn, and you have no recourse, none. Okay? So, don't put your valuables in a safety deposit box that's controlled by the bank and is limited by bank hours and bank policy and bank rules and regulations. And the feds can lock it up at any time. They have. They've confiscated gold in my parents' lifetime. And so that can happen. The president can say gold is now illegal to own and secure all safety deposit boxes. And you'll need a federal agent to be there when you get your the bank official to open your box with you and the federal agent. So why would you do that? So the same thing applies to cryptos and everything else. And the only problem is that if you're like the rest of us and you have to pay bills and you need a bank between you and your provider, whoever it might be, or your merchant or your vendor, you got to have some funds available for that. But in terms of gold and silver and cryptos and valuables and even a gun. I mean, why would you put a pistol in a safety deposit box? Back to you, Guineith.
Yeah, putting a pistol in a safety deposit box is a bit silly, in my opinion. If you're going to have something like that, I would recommend keeping it as close to your person or on your person as possible. This is it. And by the way, if you are in the United States, and if the government comes along and says, well, yes, you need to register your firearm, then it's for your protection. don't be such an idiot as to actually go and tell the government that you have a firearm, because that has not worked well for us here in Australia. Okay? Australia is in a world of trouble. Victoria, they're just about to throw Victoria into another lockdown. I would give it a week before they all have us locked in our houses again like a bunch of prisoners in Supermax. Actually, prisoners in Supermax probably would have more freedom than what we have had here in Victoria during our lockdowns. And, you know, I don't think it was a coincidence that a few months ago that Daniel Andrews fell down the stairs at his house. I don't know what happened, but what I do know is that there's a lot of people who live in Melbourne. Melbourne has a bit of a reputation of being a bit of an underworld centre of activity in Australia. And I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, something like that happened to Daniel Andrews, because he put us in so much hurt. There's certainly enough people who live in Melbourne who don't maybe have as many moral scruples as your average Joe. And I know that at one point, Daniel Andrews' home address was posted on the internet. I know that. I saw it. I'm not going to detail it here, obviously, but at one time it was out there, you know, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Fancy that. But, you know, I'm not the only one saying this. I don't know what happened to him. I don't care. I'm out here on my farm. I just want to be left alone. Okay, I'm not going to go messing with anyone. But this is it. Yeah, it's just, if you have a firearm and if you live in the United States, keep it as close to your person or on your person as possible, and don't tell anyone about it. Okay? Just keep yourself to yourself and mind your own business. And, you know, this is it. You've just got to do this. You just grow vegetables, keep chickens, and keep your eye in. That's anyone who's had anything to do with projectile firing devices knows what keeping your eye in means. It means make time now and again to get some regular practice to make sure that you can still hit that can off of that fence pole. Does that make sense, Vincent?
You bet. You bet. So, there are people who want to know if we have gold and silver and crypto, and the answer is, I'm not going to tell you. You know, I don't mean you, Guineith. I mean, why would I tell the world, you know, what we do? You know, I might say that, we have a tiny bit, but don't believe anything we say. Do your own research, but make sure you protect what you have. And, you know, Rich Sheben asked me a question on the air, and the question was, so if you had a little bit of extra money, what would you do with it? What would you do? Because if you have it in the bank, it can be seized. It can be confiscated. It can be locked down. It will lose purchasing power the longer you have it in the bank. And if you buy land, it can be taken from you. It can be seized. If you buy gold and silver, it can lose its value. If you buy cryptos, it can lose its value. What would you do? And my response was, well, how much is bail? And I wasn't kidding about that, because that's something that could happen to anybody. You could be arrested on trumped up charges. And then, you know, after a few days in the hoosegow, they can say, you know what? Yeah, I'm sorry. It was all a mistake. So it's important to prepare for all kinds of things, but make sure that you have enough cash on hand for your bail, for whatever those trumped-up charges may be. Guineith?
Yeah, I would say that's good advice. With me personally, they tried to rob me of my land, and I did my research and I found out that they were in fraud. And I threatened to sue the municipality into oblivion and a certain person who works at the municipality into oblivion. And I'm not going to name her, but that's the background of it. And, you know, this is it. You've got to defend what you have. So if you've got land, you have to be prepared to defend it legally and lawfully. And that may involve sending pieces of paper flying around, or, you know, if you have a gang of bandits come through, you may have to send projectiles flying around to defend your land, and you have to be prepared for that. And that is especially if you are female. This is because I'm female, and I live out on my farm, but I'll tell you what, if anybody comes and thinks that they can rob me of my land or rob me of anything else, I will actually tell you a couple of stories. Would that be okay, Vincent, of incidents that have happened on this farm? You know, I won't name names, but a short time after I moved onto this land, I had a particular fellow come over, and he wanted to say hello. He was the son of the guy who lived next door, and he claimed that I had stolen something from next door, which I had not. Okay, but this man was he was high on methamphetamines, and he came across, and he was ranting and raving, and he was making, you know, accusations and all of that sort of stuff. And I stood toe-to-toe with him, and I told him to get off my land. And I had my dog with me at the time, Sasha, who I had trained as a hunting dog. And actually, it wasn't me that trained her. It was another dog that trained her to be a hunting dog, and this other dog was owned by an Aboriginal woman, and we used to go hunting kangaroos on some Aboriginal land. And so she was a good hunting dog. And what she used to do was she used to run the kangaroo down, and she used to make a flying leap at its head and break its neck. That was how this particular dog hunted. Now, she wouldn't grab it, she wouldn't shed a drop of blood, but that animal would be dead before it hit the ground. Sasha's dead now, unfortunately. I had to have her put down because this is a sheep farming area, and I didn't want her getting out and doing damage. But at the time, Sasha was alive, and she was standing directly behind me. And I could see her out of the corner of my eye, and I could see the hackles on the back of her neck going up. And Sasha was a Rottweiler Kelpie cross, okay? So she was a ball of muscle, and she was very smart. And I could see the hackles on her neck going up, and her face had a fixed expression. And this guy, he didn't even see the dog. Now, I told this guy to get off my land, and I was shouting at him. And this guy, he must have been 6'2" or 6'3". And eventually, he saw that I wouldn't back down, and he backed off. He shouted at me, got into his vehicle and drove off, back down the driveway, and I never saw him again. If he had laid one finger on me, I would have dodged to one side, Sasha would have leapt for him, and he would have been like one of those big kangaroos. that Sasha used to kill when she was on the hunt. And he would have been dead before he hit the ground. Now, that's not what happened. He got back into his car and he drove off. And I never saw him again. But this is it. If I had bowed and cried and cowered and gone, oh, don't hurt me, it would have just, he probably would have bashed me, and Sasha would have attacked him anyway, but it worked best for everybody because I stood my ground. And, ice addicts are really, really unpredictable people. But even if an ice addict came on and somebody who was extremely violent, I would not back down, I would hold my ground, and if they attacked me, they would find that they had a fight on their hands. Does that make sense?
We'll be right back.
And that's how everybody has to be.
There's a television series that you might want to consider as homework class. It's called Breakout Kings, Breakout. Next word, Kings, Kings. And it's about some people who have escaped from prison. And in order to catch these escapees, the U.S. Marshals enlist the help of other prisoners and with special skills. And because the government can't figure out how to do it by themselves, they don't know how to think like criminals, at least the ones that they're trying to catch. They enlist help, and what they do is they say, all right, so for all of you guys, you're all in this together. If anyone tries to escape while you're helping the U.S. Marshals, you're all going back to prison with your sentence doubled. But if you catch one of these other escaped prisoners that we're looking for, we'll give you 1 month off your sentence. So these are all really, really bright prisoners of the system. And you will learn a little bit about how criminals think. And maybe it will help you prepare for actions that might be down the road for some of us. Not as criminals, but as people who are trying to defend our land and property and lives from people who are criminals and murderers, etc. So that's called Breakout Kings. Now, I haven't seen the whole series. It was on for 2 years. It was discontinued. So I've been watching a couple of the episodes of Series 1. It is absolutely riveting, and it is brilliant. And it is on the same kind of theme as Prison Break. And they even have one of the same characters that continues on from Prison Break, and that's Theodore Bagwell, known as T-Bag. Brilliant portrayal of a really sick individual. So there are people who are in prison who are really sick, and you need to, I think, know a little bit about how they think so you are not a victim to their chicanery and escapades. Guineith, back to you.
Yeah, like I said in the last section, if you're ever in that situation where you are facing a business end criminal, dig your heels in and stand your ground and go toe-to-toe with them and shout in their face that your voice is a potent weapon and it might just make them back down. But if you scream and cry and ask, beg to be left alone and all the rest of it, that won't work. In fact, that will stir them up. That will trigger a predatory response in them. Okay? And I know, I've just always known, ever since I was a teenager, I've never been, in this life, I have never been a career criminal. But I've always known how they think. And I think because in my past lives, I was a career criminal in every past life that I've been able to track. In one life, I was a highwayman, and another life, I was a pirate. And I've seen glimpses of a third life where I was, let's just say I was a rebel. And I think I might have been able to trace this third life, but I won't mention too much about it at the moment. But what I remember is when people begged and cried and asked to, oh, please don't, oh, no, don't, please don't rob me. That would just make me laugh. And it would make me have even less, it would just make me want to rob them even more in those past lives, hundreds of years ago. And, when I actually wrote 3 books, because I had to do something with everything that I was seeing, and I got a flood of past life memories a few years back, and I wrote some books that I ended up putting on Amazon. If anyone wants to go and buy those books, they can. But I would get what I was feeling, how I felt in those past lives, and especially in the past life where I was Lady Catherine Ferrers. When I would get people begging, please don't rob me, no, please, oh no, please don't rob me, it would just make me want to rob them even more. And I believe that today, if a robber came along, that that if they wanted to rob someone and that person begged not to be robbed, that robber would just want to rob them even more because of that. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you'll find that in the series Combat with an exclamation point. You'll find that in Breakout Kings. You'll find that in the Rockford Files. You'll find that in Jericho. And class, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Guineith Isaacs, you can type in Amazon, Guineith Isaacs, Guineith, space ISAACS.